Clouds gathered ominously that Sunday morning, and soon, the rain came down in torrents. Thunder and lightning split the sky as if the gods themselves were angered. Ikenna, the most respected young man in Omudike, had just returned from the farm. Though a mere servant, his intelligence, diligence, and kindness made him beloved by all. Every maiden wished he would choose her, but Ikenna was more focused on his dreams. Among his many admirers was Amoka, the daughter of Uche Omenka, the former ruler of Omudike. She was as beautiful as the morning sun, with deep brown skin that glowed. She and Ikenna had been childhood friends, and though many speculated about their closeness, they had remained just that, friends. That evening, as the rain subsided, Amoka stepped out to buy some spices from the village square. She barely noticed the group of young men lounging by the roadside until they approached her. Their eyes held something sinister, and their movements were deliberate. Beautiful Amoka, one of them sneered, blocking her path. Where to in this darkness? She felt a chill crawl up her spine. Excuse me, she muttered, attempting to walk past them. But they would not let her go. Before she could scream, rough hands grabbed her, muffling her cries. They dragged her behind an abandoned hut, their laughter drowning her sobs. The night swallowed her pain, and when it was over, they left her broken, lifeless. A passerby found her and raised an alarm, but it was too late. The whole village gathered, grief-stricken. Beautiful Amoka was gone. Then, as whispers filled the air, a voice rang out. It was Obiora, a young man who had always envied Ikenna. I saw Ikenna carrying Amoka behind the hut, he declared. Gasps erupted. Mr. Uche, Amoka's father, clenched his fist. His eyes, red with rage, darted around in search of Ikenna. Ikenna raped my daughter to death, he roared. Death for death. The village was divided. Ikenna. No. He would never, cried Mama Ada, an elderly woman who had known him since childhood. That boy has been pretending all this time, another murmured. Before Ikenna could even grasp what was happening, he was seized. He did not resist, he was too stunned to speak. The same people who once praised him now cursed his name. The village council met, but the verdict was swift. Without evidence to clear his name, Ikenna was sentenced to death. That evening, as the sky darkened once more, they buried him alive. The earth swallowed his muffled cries, and silence fell over Omudike. But fate was not done with them. Days later, a hunter stumbled upon a drunken confession. One of the rapists, in his stupor, boasted of what they had done to Amoka. Horror spread through the village like wildfire. Obiora, realizing his lie had gone too far, tried to flee, but the gods had their own justice. He drowned in the river, his body washing ashore days later. Mr. Uche fell into madness, haunted by his mistake. The village mourned twice, once for Amoka, and again for the innocent soul they had condemned. But Ikenna was gone. Betrayed by the very people he had loved, his name became a painful reminder of injustice. So, Omudike would never forget the day they buried their own hero alive. Years passed, but the guilt in Omudike never faded. The once thriving village became a shadow of itself. Strange things began to happen, crops withered, the streams dried up, and a thick, unexplainable darkness seemed to loom over the land. The elders murmured among themselves, fearing that the gods had cursed them for shedding innocent blood. One night, the village oracle, Agbola, summoned the people to the shrine. His voice trembled as he spoke. The spirits are restless. A great injustice has been committed, and until it is atoned for, Omudike will know no peace. Whispers spread among the villagers. Everyone knew what the oracle meant. They had killed Ikenna, a pure soul, without proof of his guilt. Mr. Uche, now frail and almost unrecognizable, staggered forward. I was blinded by grief. I let my anger consume me. I should have listened. I should have sought the truth. Tears streamed down his face as he fell to his knees. What must we do to make things right? The oracle closed his eyes, listening to the voices of the unseen. The earth must return what it has swallowed. Only then will the curse be lifted. A deep hush fell over the crowd. No one spoke, but they all knew what had to be done. The next morning, the village gathered at the site where Ikena had been buried alive. With trembling hands, they dug into the hardened soil. What they found sent chills through their spines. Ikena's body was gone. Only his tattered clothes remained. Gasps filled the air. What does this mean? Someone whispered. Before anyone could respond, a loud rustling came from the forest. A tall figure stepped into the clearing. His skin was darkened from the sun, his hair wild, his eyes piercing. It was Ikena. The villagers fell back in shock, their mouths agape. Some ran, convinced they were seeing a ghost. Others dropped to their knees, weeping. Ikena, is this really you? Mama Eda's voice trembled. His gaze swept over them, filled with a quiet pain. The earth refused to keep me. The God spared me. But you. His voice was heavy. You buried me before seeking the truth. Mr. Uche crawled to his feet, sobbing. Forgive us. We were deceived. I was deceived. Ikena took a long breath, his expression unreadable. Forgiveness. That is not for me to give. It is the gods you must seek. The oracle stepped forward. The gods have returned him to us. That is mercy in itself. The village elders declared a day of mourning and atonement. A great feast was held, not in celebration, but in repentance. The true culprits were hunted down and punished by the community, ensuring that justice was finally served. Though Ikena lived, he was never the same. The betrayal had scarred him deeper than death ever could. At dawn, without a word, he left Omudike, disappearing into the world beyond. The village would forever remember him, not just as the boy they wronged, but as the man who had been buried alive yet walked again. Ikena walked away from Omudike, his heart heavy with wounds that time could never heal. He had returned from the grave, but his soul no longer belonged in the village that had betrayed him. For years, his name echoed through the land, spoken in hushed tones and reverence. Some said he was a spirit, neither fully alive nor dead. Others believed he had been chosen by the gods, spared to walk among men as a reminder of their sins. Back in Omudike, the people never found peace. Though they had sought forgiveness, the absence of Ikena left a void that could never be filled. The village that once thrived with laughter and harvest became a place of sorrow and whispered regrets. Chief Uche, consumed by guilt, fell ill and never recovered. On his dying breath, he whispered, Ikena, forgive me. But the winds carried his plea away, unanswered. One fateful night, an elder swore he saw a lone figure standing at the village entrance. The figure did not move or speak, just stood, watching. By dawn, he was gone. The next day, the village stream flowed clearer than it had in years. The crops began to grow again. The darkness that had lingered over Omudike slowly lifted. Many believed Ikena had finally granted them peace, though he never returned. Where he went, no one knew. Some say he became a great warrior in a distant land. Others claim he lived as a wanderer, a ghost of a man who no longer belonged anywhere. But one thing remained certain, Omudike would never forget the man they had buried alive. So, his story lived on, passed from generation to generation, a tale of betrayal, justice, and the unforgiving hands of fate.